Yep, sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another awesome article by Capt Frank Lanier. Please subscribe, like, and share with all your friends, and all the people you hate too. While exclamations like, "we're out of hot dogs," or "the toilet seems to be clogged," are bad enough, the one that really strikes fear in a boater's heart is, where's all this water coming from? Uncontrolled flooding is one of the most insidious emergencies a boater can face, one that can not only sink a boat outright, but can also lead to instability and capsize. Many boat owners train and purchase equipment to save themselves or those on board, but aside from a few wooden plugs and a vague plan of action, very few are adequately prepared to mount a credible attempt to save the boat itself should flooding due to a hull breach occur. Here's how to both improve your odds and give your boat a fighting chance. My first introduction to damage control basics was as a newly minted Coast Guard seaman attending training aboard the Navy's USS Buttercup. Yeah, look it up. It was an eye-opening experience that continues to guide my own damage control philosophy some 30 years later. As with any emergency situation, advanced preparation is the key to dealing with a hull breach. It should include everything from planning for possible causes of flooding to assembly of a proper damage control kit or a DC kit. Damage control itself can be categorized into a number of steps, from prevention and preparation to damage assessment, control, and temporary repairs. Topics such as proper and timely distress signaling, temporary repairs, emergency pumps, and rescue are also important. But the focus here is to find, access, and stop, or at least mitigate, the source of uncontrolled water entry into the hull. The focus is also on fiberglass hulls, although many of the techniques can also be applied to other vessels. Flooding fun facts. Well, they're not really fun, but they are facts you should know. The volume of water that enters a boat is proportional to the square root of the depth of the hole and the square of the hole's radius. A 2-inch hole that is 1 foot below the waterline can fill a 55-gallon drum in 42.4 seconds. A 1-inch hole that is 2 foot below the waterline is forcing your boat's weight to increase at 240 pounds per minute or 4 pounds per second. And as the boat fills with water, the effective hole depth increases, forcing faster water ingress. Early detection is crucial when dealing with flooding. The more time you have to address the problem, the better chances your boat and possibly you will survive. Precautions such as a high water bilge alarm system and bilge pump on indicators at each helm position will provide the maximum benefit in this regard. However, these should be part of your pre-planning preparedness strategy. As mentioned earlier, our purpose here is to highlight actions to consider when a hull breach occurs. The first goal in a flooding situation is to find the leak and stop it, or at least bring it under control. Without first-hand experience, it's almost impossible for the average boater to imagine how quickly flooding can occur, even during a relatively small leak, such as a ruptured hose or damaged through-hull fitting. More water in the boat can make a leak harder to find in the first place, which is another reason why time is so critical. It's also important to note that the added weight of floodwater can negatively affect vessel stability and operation. This additional weight may also give you an early sign that you're taking on water as the boat becomes more sluggish, harder to steer, and slower or behaves differently. Hull breaches. Hull breaches can be divided into two broad categories: structural breaches and below the waterline equipment failure. A structural breach of the hull typically occurs as a result of impact damage from grounding or collision with an object, although failure of the hull due to other reasons, severe delamination, broken stringers, and inadequate design, can also happen. Flooding due to equipment failure can include anything from a broken seacock to a ruptured hose. While equipment failure can often be traced to improper installation or lack of maintenance, there can also be some crossover between the two, such as a rudder loss or stern drive damage due to grounding. Assembling a damage control kit. The two best things to tackle a hull breach with are a cool head and a well thought out damage control kit. From shower curtains and beer can koozies to t-shirts and throw pillows held in place with your foot, most every boat will have something on board that can be used for damage control in a pinch. While such on-the-fly repairs can be effective, Why risk being unable to MacGyver a solution in an emergency when you can easily buy or assemble a proper damage control kit beforehand? A DC kit should be tailored to meet the needs of your particular boat. A small runabout will obviously have neither the space or need to carry the same kit as an offshore cruising vessel. All boats should carry some form of damage control kit, however, which should be stored in a readily accessible, dedicated bag or container labeled damage control kit. There's no hard and fast rule of what they should contain, however, the time to think about it is now. Here's a good starting point for assembling your own damage control kit. Number 1, 2 or 3 waterproof flashlights. A mix of handheld and headlamps works great. Number 2, hatchet or small axe. This is what you would use to chop away interior furnishings or split wood wedges. Number 3, a heavy hammer or maul. 4, folding hand saw. Number 5, a utility knife. 6, a pry bar. Number 7, marine caulk, such as boat life caulk, that cures fast and bonds underwater. Number 8, tapered soft wooden plugs of various sizes. Number 9, soft wooden wedges, various sizes. Number 10, foam emergency plug, again, various sizes. Screwdrivers, various sizes. You can see there's a pattern here, right? Because you want to be able to address whatever happens. So that's why the various sizes. Number 12, stainless steel mousing or seizing wire. 13, duct tape. Is any kind of kit really complete without it? The Gorilla brand works well, I've found. Number 14, butyl tape, which is a heavy, sticky, ropey kind of tape that's good for wrapping plugs and stuff and sticking in holes. Number 15, self-fusing silicone tape, such as a rescue tape. Number 16, grease tape. Number 17, spray can of expanding foam. This is great for filling voids and gaps around wooden patches. Number 18, sheets of rubber or rubberized cloth, various size squares. Old raincoat sleeves or pant legs or cut tire inner tube works well for this. Number 19, hose clamps, various sizes. 20, C-clamps. 21, duct seal compound, aka monkey poop. Number 22, wax toilet bowl rings. You'd be surprised, but these work really well to seal gaps around shafts and glands. Number 23, twine and or paracord. 24, wire ties, assorted sizes and lengths. 25, a couple of 2x4s. 26, one sheet of thin 1/4 inch or 5/16 inch plywood, pre-cut to various size squares. Slightly larger pre-cut squares of thick felt or thin foam rubber gaskets will help wood patches seal against the hull. Number 27, nails. 28, square drive or self-tapping or self-drilling rust-resistant screws, along with a matching hand driver or battery-operated drill with a driver extension. These will be used to secure wood patches to the hull. 29, utility snips. And 30, underwater epoxy putty or a fiberglass repair kit. And I'll add one thing about that last item. While they have their place in a DC kit, epoxy compounds or fiberglass repair kits will be of no use for an immediate stop the flooding situation. For starters, just because they cure underwater, that doesn't mean they'll bond. Most will not stick to a wet surface, especially a hull that's under pressure. The surfaces to be bonded must also be completely immobile. Epoxy can't bond surfaces that are flexing or moving in relationship to each other. Cure time can also be greatly affected by temperature. Colder water can add days to advertised cure time. Next up, we're going to talk about access. In a perfect world, a hull breach would never happen. But if it did, it would be in an easily accessible location. With the adequate hull access, a hull can be more readily found and hopefully stopped by something as simple as a plug, a plywood patch, or whatever method resourcefulness provides. Regardless of the training, equipment, and ingenuity a boat owner possesses, it all amounts to nothing if a leak can't be found and accessed. Fiberglass boats can be notoriously bad when it comes to providing even minimal internal access to the hull. The use of one-piece pans and liners almost guarantees a crew dealing with a structural hull breach will be faced with water gushing from multiple holes for wire runs, piping, or ducting, and no clear idea of just where the damage is located. The best option in such cases will likely be battlefield type surgery to remove internal furnishings and cut access holes into the liner in efforts to expose the hull and find the breach. One reason that having the proper tools, saws, pry bars, and axes readily available when needed is imperative. Despite your best efforts, access to a leak may be impossible due to either location or a leak being already underwater by the time a problem is discovered. In such cases, isolating the space to prevent flooding of the entire vessel is the preferred option, although only for boats with watertight bulkheads, something not found on the vast majority of recreational vessels. Another possible option might be gently beaching the boat if you're close to shore. Assuming the hull configuration is suitable for it, it's safe to do so, and there is nearby soft sand or mud bottom. Just keep in mind that beaching the boat may increase incoming water flow, something that must be considered against the benefits of successful beaching. Once a leak is found, next up is a realistic assessment of the damage or nature of flooding, as well as the odds of successfully addressing it. In some cases, flooding may be stopped by simply closing a seacock. Others, such as a structural breach, will likely not be as easy. While the hope when tackling a hull breach is that it can be completely sealed, the reduction of flooding to a manageable level is the most likely scenario. The difference between the two is that a leak can be managed by bilge or emergency pumps, while flooding cannot and will eventually lead to sinking unless addressed. In addition to ascertaining the extent of damage, another part of this initial assessment is danger to the crew should they attempt a repair. Damage rarely occurs under ideal conditions, which means other factors such as darkness, heavy weather, loss of power, poor access, rate of flooding, etc., must also be considered when making the decision to attempt repairs or make preparations for abandoning ship. Suspect areas. Unless you've struck something, run aground, or know where the breach is located, the first places to consider are all hull penetrations below the waterline, such as seacocks, stuffing boxes, shaft, and rudder glands. Other weak areas to check include shaft log hoses, the section of hose joining the shaft log to the shaft gland or stuffing box, hose clamps, as well as hoses located in out-of-the-way areas, toilet intakes, sanitation discharge hoses, cockpit drains, and the like, that may not get looked at on a regular basis, although they should be. If you have struck an object or grounded, then that would indicate where the initial search would begin. Pull up floorboards, open hatches, and clear lockers in efforts to determine where the leak is coming from. Controlling the flood. Once the damage has been evaluated and a determination made that it's safe to proceed with repairs, now is the time to apply your training, preparation, and ingenuity. Impact damage to a fiberglass hull will likely result in a jagged, uneven split rather than a nice round hole, so don't be afraid to use your imagination. That bacon sheet slathered with caulk and screwed into place may be the perfect patch. You also don't need to worry about neatness or how pretty the repair looks. It's only temporary and just needs to be effective at stopping the leak. Once the flooding is stopped, you can always go back and improve the strength of the repair if needed. Foam or expansion style plugs can be jammed into smaller holes. Stuffing rubber sheeting, towels, or rags coated with marine caulk or similar items into them can also be effective. These can also be wrapped around wooden plugs and wedges before driving them into place, which helps fill the hole, provide a better seal, and keep the plug or wedge in place. Wooden plugs and wedges should be of soft wood such as pine or fir. Soft wood wedges can be more easily split to fit different hole sizes and more readily conforms to irregular hole sizes. Softwood also compresses when driven into a breach and will absorb water and swell, improving the seal. You can also use multiple plugs or wedges to seal large or irregularly shaped holes. Items such as cushions or mattress can be used to plug larger holes, as can plywood patches, which can be nailed or screwed into place. As water will be entering the hull under pressure, plugs and patches may also need to be shored or braced into place. That's the purpose of the aforementioned tubophores. However, free your mind and think outside the box when the need arises. A boat hook, a table leg, or even a sturdy shower curtain rod can also be used in a pinch. In some cases, a collision mat, sail, piece of canvas, or even a heavy trash bag, if strong enough to be used and not sucked in, can be lowered over the side and held into place by straps and water pressure. While this type of emergency repair may be worth a shot at certain cases, a large breach or one that can't be located, for example, my personal preference is to concentrate on repairs that can be attempted from inside the hull. The effectiveness of a collision mat or similar item can be hampered by hull shape, heavy seas, or even location of the breach itself. Another downside is that effective deployment will also likely require that somebody enter the water to place and secure the mat in position. Not a desirable option even under the best of circumstances. A split or ruptured hose or pipe can be wrapped with tape or rubber strips secured in place with hose clamps, twines, or wire ties, while a failed seacock or through hull can be sealed with a plug. It's also good to remember that sink drains and other above the waterline through hulls can become submerged due to flooding, possibly allowing water to back siphon into the hull if not plugged or otherwise secured. Finally, I'll close with this. As with all safety training, the time to learn damage control techniques is before they're needed. Planning and preparation beforehand will help ensure both you and your boat have a fighting chance should the need arise. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, and you want to buy Capt Frank a cup of coffee, please click on the thanks button below this video. All tips received, not spent on coffee, will be used to improve my YouTube channel and create even more awesome videos.